We need to have a conversation. And in that conversation is a story of epic proportions, a story that has impacted people's lives and one that I believe will impact yours. This is a story about shift. The shift from paternalism, punishment, prohibition, to true community ownership and self-determination. And that shift is happening right now. This is a quote from an elder from the Aboriginal community of Napranum. We have proved to ourselves and hopefully the rest of Australia that indigenous communities can and must be the shapers of their destiny. This is a radical new way of thinking. It's a process that I feel honoured to have been a part of. I would have read that quote maybe 100, 300 times, and every time I do, I'm reminded of the impact of this work. And every shift has a critical moment in time, a time when things just happen, when everything just kind of falls into sync. And for me, that happened about 5 years ago. I was a senior manager in corporate, but I'm okay now. I was really happy wearing my suit and trekking all over the world, and I was having a really great time. But I took a much-needed holiday to Cape York. I thought to be away for 4 days. Well, during that time away, I met some Indigenous elders. And they got really interested in my conversation about community ownership and self-determination. They were particularly interested in the shift from punishment, paternalism, and prohibition. And they invited me into their community. Well, 4 days became 2 weeks, and 2 weeks became 3 months. 3 months became 12 months. And my executive rang me and he said, "Annalise, are you ever coming home?" And I said, "No. I've found the shift. The shift that has impacted me so deeply and so profoundly that I don't believe that I can ever come back to my corporate job." I fell in love with the people and I made the shift from corporate banking to First Nations people. And this is where it all began, the Aboriginal community of Napranum. About an hour and 15 minutes flight from Cairns. It's situated on the left coast of Cape York in the Gulf of Carpentaria. It is surrounded by beautiful turquoise blue water, golden sands, and people who have completely... There it is. People who have completely captured my heart. And albeit that Napranum is near the wealthy mining community of Weipa, it has been considered a poor and overcrowded community. The word Napranum means meeting place, given to it by its elders many years ago. When I was first engaged by the Napranum Council to help develop a visionary plan for future generations, I asked a number of elders and community people to come together, and this one particular elder to draw me a picture of what his vision of the future actually looks like. And this is what he described as part of his picture, and you may not see some of the detail here, but he's got there a school. The school in Napranum was taken away about 10 years ago without any consultation, without any community engagement. He drew a bus, a supermarket. Imagine a community, your community, where there is no supermarket. An oval where the children could play, where they weren't skinning their knees on dirt and rocks and termite mounds. In his mind, he could see a beautiful green sporting oval. Speed bumps, speed lights. Some of these things might seem normal or might seem like simple things that we all look for, but the reality in this community is that what he was looking for and others were looking for most of all was community ownership. When I stepped into Napranum, and what I saw was actually very different. And it was labelled the second poorest community in Queensland. But that was then. Some broad statistics. Average life expectancy, about 52 years. 83% of the prison population are indigenous people. 3 times the level of unemployment compared to mainstream. And what struck me the most was youth suicide, not only on the increase, but our children are getting younger. Numeracy and literacy well below the national standards. When I first engaged people across the community in this vision of the future, I remember gathering a group of young women. And there was one young woman in particular, I'll never forget the look in her eyes. When I asked her, what are you hoping for? What does this vision of the future look like for you? And she said to me, Annalise, nothing's ever going to change around here. And that really struck me. Meet Counsellor Marianne Coconut. Marianne is a Thanakwith elder and a woman that I hold in very high esteem, and she's actually in our audience today. A woman that I absolutely honour. And Marianne reminded me of something very important. She said, Annalise, life is like a rose. And along that stem, there are many, many thorns, but we must never, ever lose sight of the rose at the end of that stem. And so with that, our visionary plan continued. Well, within 2 years, we saw a shift of monumental proportions. This community stepped closer to true community ownership. That rose opened up and it bloomed. 60% increase in employment. These young men are part of the housing project. We saw 40% increase in community-owned infrastructure. A new preschool, refurbished town hall, new roads, town signage. This is a proud community. Joint ventures established for the first time, 31 homes and accommodation units in just over 18 months. Now that's a story worth sharing. Not only that, but for the first time, Indigenous people actually designing their own homes and having a financial stake in that joint venture. A few weeks ago, I was asked to be a guest speaker at Napranum supermarket opening. Now, this is the first time that Napranum had a supermarket in 15 years. The first time that groceries were sold to its people in 15 years. About 250 people gathered, which was fantastic to see. During that presentation, I remember saying, when I think of Napranum, I think of dream builders. I think of visionaries. And when you become a dream builder, a visionary, there is simply no going back to an ordinary existence. Women are speaking up and taking up leadership roles. We have seen a shift from welfare dependency towards true revenue-making industry. We've seen a decrease of 50% in adult domestic violence. And how was it done? Would you like to know? I'm sure you do. That shift, this is how it was done. I introduced the ripple effect as a concept to engage the hearts and minds of the people. So what is the pebble that you want to drop into that pond? Is it a pebble of self-determination? Is it a pebble of community ownership? Is it a pebble of self-belief, or is it not? And that conversation spread through the community. It wasn't just a ripple effect, it was a wave. It was a groundswell, and everyone was talking about the ripple effect, and they were all talking about it at the same time. And this is how we did it. We called our program Whole of Community Change. It's about creating economic development and community growth, and I'll explain a little bit more. We find the balance between economic development and building the spiritual well-being of the people, because one can't work in isolation of the other. It all starts with you, with each of you getting really clear about who are you, what do you believe in, what do you want to create. Community leaders get involved and the ripple effect begins. Parents get involved in how they want to contribute, who they are as parents. Young adults get involved. We start to build capability, skills, confidence, so that as the community starts to grow its infrastructure, there are people ready in the community to jump in and take up roles and give things a go. Students get involved as young as year 7. What are your goals? As a young person, what are you hopeful for? Who are you? What's your cultural identity? And the elders are involved all the way through as cultural leaders of the community. The community drives this process. This is about doing things with community, not to them. That's what whole of community change is. And what was even more wonderful, is that government stood back and they allowed us to just move forward and give this a go. So how do we shift away from the 3 Ps? The answer starts with a question. When I first started working with Indigenous communities, I was struck by the negative social indicators. And I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about Indigenous policy. I didn't have any answers. And I thought, how fantastic is that? I don't know anything. So I was able to walk in with a completely blank canvas. And we were able to create and build this program together. Our wisdom lies in the questions that we ask, not in the answers that we pretend to have. And so whole of community change starts with those age-old questions. Who am I? What am I here for? What's deeply meaningful to me? To create this place of belonging, this is all about connection to Mother Nature. This is connection to our land. If this is a policy document that belongs to me, I've had a part in its co-creation. If I've had a part in its co-creation, then I'm going to take ownership of it, I'm going to love it, I'm going to nurture it, and I'll take accountability. True, yes or no? But if this is a policy document that has been imposed on me and it affects my country, it affects my people, it impacts on the values of my family, how am I going to feel? Disempowered. Absolutely. We'll try 200 years of disempowerment. So to have that place of belonging is all about leaving a footprint in the sand. It's about creating legacy. Self-belief. Imagine shifting self-doubt to self-belief, to be able to wake up every morning and say yes to life, to move yourself forward. This is the one I love the most, to shift our conversations from problems to possibilities. Our communities are not problems to be solved. Our communities are full of gifts and assets. Our children are not offenders. Our children are not youth at risk. Our children are young people. They are entrepreneurs who are just waiting to be asked to be discovered. Let's feed the gifts of community rather than the deficiencies and needs. Why are communities disengaged? What is the behaviour of sadness? It is disengagement. And why are communities disengaged? Because they are constantly told they are wrong. Because they are constantly told they have a problem. So this is about shifting from the root cause of failure to the root cause of success. From feeding our services into deficiencies and needs of community to looking at what are the possibilities, what are we here to create, and what is our potential. And let's create our strategy from that starting point, not this point. And the magic, the power of vision. Remember the elder that created this wonderful picture. Only 2 years on, 90% of the community goals have come to fruition in just over 2 years. Now that deserves an applause. So my message to you is simple. Never ever give up on your hopes and dreams, even in the face of adversity. It takes a community to build a community. The answer is in the community. The wisdom lies in the collective of those people. This is Marianne Coconut again. A huge shift here. This is where Marianne received her native title documents. It was a big day, a wonderful day, the ultimate in community ownership and creating that sense of belonging. Real shifts never have an ending. They impact us for life. And Marianne's quote, "This is the best thing that has ever happened to our community." And one of the greatest shifts of all in my professional life, I remember Marianne ringing me at home and she said, "Annalise, I've been thinking about you." And she said, I would like to make you an adopted daughter of my tribal land." She said, "Is that okay?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "Your Aboriginal name is Keely." So ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keely. And I'm represented by the lorikeet, the totem lorikeet. And when I asked a few more questions about what that means, the lorikeet is the messenger between heaven and earth. And for me, that was the greatest honour that I could have ever asked for. And thank you. This presentation is a tribute to the people of Napranum. Congratulations, Napranum. And a huge clap to the 3 elders who are here with us today. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to my story and Napranum's story. Thank you.